John Glover was Australia's most important colonial painter.
It goes right to the core of our Australian culture.
This fertile valley, full of birdsong and free of phone reception, is a portal back in time to when colonial settlers were discovering the beauty of the Australian landscape. The hills and river flats were inspiration for renowned artist John Glover, and today the landscape remains nearly unchanged from what he painted almost 200 years ago. John Glover arrived in what was then Van Diemen's Land on his 64th birthday in 1831. Awarded one of the largest land grants at the time, he established the farm Patterdale before the city of Melbourne had been founded. Already a celebrated artist in England, later in life he cherished Australia's bright, clear light and wide open spaces to become known as the father of Australian colonial art.
It became obvious to me that it was a very important property for Tasmania and for Australia. John Glover was Australia's most important colonial painter before 1850. There was a lot of interest in him. A lot of people wanted to come and see where he lived and painted, and partly because of the John Glover Landscape Prize that had been started, that's 16 years ago now. So there were more and more people wanting to come and see where he lived.
Carol Westmore and husband Rodney now own Patterdale, or Glover Country, the term coined by fellow artist Tom Roberts to describe the part of the world that influenced John Glover most. They've embarked on an ambitious plan to preserve it.
I think it was incredibly important because he underwent a renaissance in his style of painting when he came here. He painted the landscape as it actually was. Yes, it was a whole rebirth and resurgence of interest and passion for him.
And he was excited that the thought that he would come out and find new light, new landscapes, different flora, different fauna to paint. And I think that's pretty exciting. If you can do that in your 60s, that's fantastic.
The most significant part of the project has been restoring John Glover's homestead. It now matches how it was captured in his paintings. But only 3 years ago, it was derelict and on the brink of collapse. How would you describe the efforts to restore the Glover homestead?
Oh, can you find the words? It's just extraordinary, amazing. You know, I've been involved in it for quite some time, and I knew the building. I watched the building as it started to crumble, and I was with Carol the year that one of the walls just got a huge crack in it, and you just knew that was the year that was very, very dry, and you just knew that it was about to go.
They've reinforced the structure, but retained the influence of the past.
This angle where the wall meets the window frame is a very good illustration of how difficult the restoration was. Every piece of timber in the house had to be fitted, taken down, reshaped, fitted again many, many times over.
Not a straight line in this room?
No, absolutely. All the walls are very curvaceous and sinewy. If you want straight walls, you build a new house.
The exhibition room, where John Glover did most of his painting, had disappeared before Carol and Rodney came to the farm 15 years ago. Every detail has been recreated, including the stone chimney and a spacious room full of natural light.
We know exactly what was here because of Glover's paintings, but very much from what's in this panoramic view painted by John Richardson Glover in 1835. There's so much detail in this.
The drawing, originally A4, by John Glover's illegitimate son, John Richardson Glover, depicts the structures on the farm.
It's a bit disorienting, but it makes sense to you?
Well, it's a bit like a drone view, really.
Carol Westmore has replanted a small section of the garden.
I call it a Gloveresque garden because it's not a reproduction of what was here. Some of the plants that were in that painting are now declared weeds, and we couldn't put them back.
Inside the homestead, it's immaculate, ready for an artist-in-residency program where visual artists, writers and music composers will immerse in rural Tasmania. The finishing touch? French polishing the woodwork. Vaughan Fisher has spent months on Glover country, making replicas of the mantles and bringing the timbers back to life. With a Bachelor of Fine Arts, he has a deep appreciation of John Glover's work and legacy.
The best thing about working out here was for Carol and Rodney doing such a wonderful thing, I think. Yeah.
Why is it a wonderful thing?
Because it goes right to the core of our Australian culture.
But I think what I love about Glover and the landscape here is that he knew that he was on Aboriginal land as well, and he painted the Aboriginal people as he imagined in the land. So it's a landscape that is layered. It's not just one thing or the other. It is that ancient land, and it is the land that Glover loved, and it's the land that Glover farmed, and it's the land that subsequent people have looked after.
Club-footed, John Glover would lug his sketching easel up the hills to find a view to study. As part of the Glover Country project, they've identified where John Glover sat as he drew inspiration for his most iconic paintings. They've set up these interpretation centres so visitors to the farm can sit here and look over those same landscapes. And it's now protected. Carol had 4,000 hectares of the property heritage listed.
I think it's important to preserve the landscape that John Glover painted. Probably I would have hesitated if it was sort of all rich farmland, but a lot of it is the hills that John Glover painted that are essentially in the same condition.
But there's more to Patterdale than preserving John Glover's legacy. The same level of dedication is applied to producing mostly superfine wool. Patterdale runs 9,000 non-mulesed merino sheep. These 2-year-old wethers spend most of their time in the bush, feeding on native pastures.
Well, the backcountry run, they're basically foraging for themselves, so we might only see them 3-4 times a year. They've got pretty good feed up there, wandering around, and then they come in and get shorn.
So this is a good chance to finally take a good look at them. How are these guys looking at the moment?
They're looking very good. I think the wool will yield really well.
The heritage listing means 4,000 hectares of the farm can never be cleared, but it can be grazed.
It doesn't really change how you're managing it as a farm. It's more like what you're allowed to cut down and what you can't. The covenant areas are different. We have to apply to graze in them, and they'll give us the go-ahead or not.
How much of the property is in the covenant?
Probably the 500 hectares.
A conservation covenant is a legal agreement to manage areas specifically for natural values.
A few years ago we had a drought down here, and the covenant ground came in very handy for us, but you've just got to be managed and not chew it out too hard and just look after everything that's in there.
Angus Brown has been managing the farm for 6 months and sees a lot of potential on this already productive property.
There's also a lot of on-farm storage for water. There's almost 2,000 megalitres. So there is an irrigation component, which is 200 hectares with plenty of room for expansion. We're mainly aiming to produce a higher yielding sheep and probably stick around the 17 micron. We don't want to go any finer than that. Just stay in the super fine. And yeah, basically size and numbers.
The superfine wool, between 16 and 17 micron, is in demand.
Certainly these wools are coveted by the Italian textile industry, and they are lining up year after year to buy the Patterdale wool clip.
A lot of the wool buying companies now, particularly the ones selling their products in Europe, they want to know about the property, so they are interested in properties that have a good story, an interesting story. And yes, we now have contracts with a number of different companies who want to tell that story.
The Patterdale shearing sheds are familiar ground for wool classer Alistair Strickland. He's been in the game over 51 years.
He classed 6 1PP bales for the state. I don't think that's been rivalled ever.
What's a 1PP?
So 1PP is the highest type that we can, the premium type that we can put on a bale of wool. It's not unrivalled.
Only a few dozen 1PP bales are produced in Australia every year. It's a badge of honour for a wool classer, celebrating the art of understanding the subtle differences that set the best clips apart.
It's just that special ability to identify those wools that are going to be judged by a committee to be the premium type, surpassed by no other. He has that ability.
The superfine wool takes some special handling. Alistair double skirts the fleece, which removes anything that isn't part of a consistent, top quality product.
The supreme is the shoulder and down the flank, and that goes in the top lines. And then I'll put the top line away in butts, and then after shearing time I'll go through that after and spend another day doing that preparation of that top bale.
That's a lot of extra work.
Well, it is, but so if you've got that passion for it, you don't even think about that.
Last year, Alistair Strickland classed 4 of the top 10 winners in a prestigious Italian wool competition. He is as energetic as ever about classing the perfect clip.
I've just got that passion for it, so in this new Italian competition, has revamped me, rejuvenated my passion for it, and while the body's holding up, I'll just keep on doing it.
Get away! Get away!
Passion is a recurring theme on this property.
It's kind of got a bit of passion. Like if you don't enjoy it, well, you better not to do it. You've got to enjoy what you do, so and I enjoy it now, which is good.
Carl Glover, unsure of any family connection with the artist, has been a stockman on Patterdale for 10 years. He says tourists, lured to the property by the art, end up learning about agriculture.
They get to see what actually goes on the farm as well. Like they come to look at the Glover thing, but they can see what the Glover was involved in with his farm, how it's run, how we look after it. So that's a good another side of it.
And the Westmores are more than happy the quality of their flock is admired as much as their restoration and preservation of Glover country.